1959. A very good year. I was eight at that time.
Not going to say a word. I was at grammar school.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Woodley Town Council Strategy and Resources Committee, held on the 7th of June 2022. Woodley Town Council meetings are now recorded, with recordings streamed live and stored on the Town Council's YouTube channel. By virtue of attending the meeting, you're consenting to having your image and audio recorded for this purpose. And if you do not wish for your image and audio to be recorded, then please do not stay for the meeting. Thank you. Right. First item on the agenda is appointment of a chairman for the municipal year. So if I could ask for any nominations for position chairman.
I nominate Councillor Keith Baker.
And is there a seconder for that nomination? Okay. Do we have any other nominations? Okay. We take a vote, sorry, on Councillor Baker's appointment. Those in favour? 4. And those against?
None against.
And abstentions?
1 abstention.
Yes,
2 abstentions.
Okay, fab, thank you.
Sounding terrible right next to that. Right, good evening, everyone. So the next part of that agenda item is the appointment of a vice chairman. I would like to nominate Councillor Brinley. Is there a seconder? Thank you very much. Is there any other nominations? All those in favour, please show.
4.
All those against? All those abstentions?
2 abstentions.
Thank you. Now I announce you are, for the municipal year, formally elected as the vice chairman. Apologies.
Yes, we have apologies from councillors Wicks and Anderson.
Okay, thank you. Any other apologies from the floor? Nope. Okay. Any declarations of interest? Nope. Minutes of the meeting held on 19th of April 2022. The minutes were provided in the full council agenda of 10th of May 2022. Can I seek approval? All those in favour, please.
Yeah.
That's unanimous. Over the page, item 5, budgetary control to receive report SR 16/22 on page 5. I'll call on Deputy Town Clerk to introduce this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Not to report this early on in the year, so just a couple of points to note. In the expenditure, you will see under corporate management that some of those that figures are slightly higher than the amount for the month at this point in the year. That's because the insurance premium and the health and safety and HR package is paid up front. Other costs are below the 3%. And likewise on the income, you'll see that Oakwood Centre income, for example, appears lower, but that's because there's some other rents to do with the police office and things that haven't come in, whereas the room hire is actually at 9.6, which is over the slightly over for this point in the year.
So do I have any questions for, okay, Councillor Chadwick?
I just wondered, capital programme's not yet approved. When does that get approved?
The intention is for that to come to the next full council meeting. We're putting it together now, and then it goes to the full council for consideration.
And if I could add to that, we have got an agenda item on capital projects, and what I think we should do as a committee is give some sort of indication of the priority, because at the end of that report, you'll see a list of potential projects. And I think it would be good for this committee to give some guidance to Kevin in advance of the full council meeting. Okay, so if there's no more questions, then we have something to receive, so we can move on. Here's Anne's favourite. Payments, page 6 onwards. And
Okay, so one thing is, it strikes me that the payment to HMRC for,
what page, please?
I beg your pardon, it's actually page 6, but it's also page 9. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's right, page 9 as well. The payment to HMRC for PAYE and national insurance does seem to be appreciably higher than it was before. Have I got that right? And it wouldn't be like that month on month sort of thing.
I'd have to check back and come back to you on that, just to confirm. I'm more than happy to do that.
I haven't finished actually, Beth, but I mean,
No, I was just going to comment that the following month it's 23,000.
yeah. Yes, and I think in previous months it was lower than that sort of.
And now it's gone up considerably.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, let me find out what that is and report back to.
Okay. Okay, am I right in thinking that gas supplies haven't gone up much in price yet, that what you paid in March anyway hasn't gone up much?
Some have, I'm just wondering whether it's the gas or electricity accounts. They haven't changed accounts, but some, although were on a fixed rate, still were able to go up despite being on a fixed rate. There's a bit of a loophole in the contracting on quite a lot of contracts. So it turns out. So there was an increase, that was some time ago. They haven't gone up again since.
But presumably that must be imminent then.
We're not sure at the moment. We do keep in contact with our energy broker, who we negotiate the contracts with in the first place, and they're pretty good at keeping us afoot of things. But yeah, so I'm not aware of anything imminently on our contracts.
Okay, thank you. I see that the fences have been, this page 7, the fences have been bought for Malone Park. Is that all done now?
Yes, yeah, it is.
Okay, so then on page 8, I see that that's, what's this AJBIBL insure invoice? And there's another one, is insurance. There's 3 payments to insurance, but that's quite a big one, isn't it? To AJBB.
Yeah, I'll have to check that as well. I think sometimes with the insurances, some of them are separate. So that might be to do with the bouncy castles and things, which always comes as a separate one as an insurance premium.
It's very large though. That one's 31,000.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the 2,000.
Oh, sorry, that's because there's 3 of them, isn't there?
The 31,000 is the main one. The other ones that are split out, I know the bouncy castles get split out, and there's a cyber insurance which is split out separately. So it might be one of those ones.
Right. Okay.
so when you say they're split out, are they separate insurances or just existing as like one off?
Some are additions and some are actually separate. That looks like it's an addition because it's the same company. But again, I'd have to check, but I can check.
Carry on, Anne.
Okay. Oh yes, page 9 at the top, advanced maintenance UK, replaced fan in the cafe, 6,500. That was quite an expensive fan.
Yeah, it was a unit which had failed and was obsolete as well. So we had to get a different type of unit. It's for the whole extraction system from the kitchen area. So we had budgeted for that. So we knew it was coming. So yeah, it was quite expensive.
And so 2 things. Well, on page 10, the roof repair to the leisure centre. Is that all finished now?
It is complete. We are just waiting on the sign off. So we have an independent inspection due, which I think is happening next week, before that's closed off and the retention paid on the contract.
Oh, right, okay, so that's doing well. Oh, and on page 11, yes, there's the backs payments. Oh, I noticed you've had some frauds, but that seems to have got resolved. On page 11, you've had fraud transactions, but then they've all been refunded.
Yes, yeah. They were slightly, I can't remember what they were for now, but they flagged up and actually looked very genuine. And yeah, the finance officer spent some considerable time talking to Lloyds to get it sorted out.
Oh, so right, so the council had to actively sort of do something about it.
Yeah, deductibles.
Right. So yeah, so my last question I think was the backs payments there, 9,600 and 2,500. What are they for? They're not normally shown like. Well, normally shown like that.
It's a very good question. I'll have to find that out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's me finished. Thank you.
Any other questions? So,
Just ask, is the 31,000 for the insurance, that's annual?
if there are no more questions, we have to vote to approve. All those in favour, please show. Unanimous. Moving on to page 12, the Oakwood Centre report. You're doing, Kevin.
Thank you. So quite a brief report. So just to note that we have had a couple of new hirers, new birthing classes and hypnotherapy courses. Room hire, just to note at the year end, it was 51,263, which was over the revised budget estimate of 40,000, which was good news. Things started to pick up towards the end of the year as people got a bit more confident, and obviously everything started coming out of restrictions. Room hire for April this year was 4780 against the target figure of 4167, so that's just about on track at this point. There is a graph there on page 13, Appendix A, which just shows, and I'm tending to provide this each time, just so that members can see track income against budget and against the previous year as we go through. Catering income, likewise over the page. Year-end income there was 11,702 against the last budget of 8,000. So again, that picked up and did a little better than we thought it might. There's not much information on there because we're a bit late getting the May figure on there, but going forward through the year, that'll make more sense if we can track the income through the year.
Any questions on that?
Can I just say those graphs were very helpful, so tracking through figures. So I think that's useful. Thank you, Kevin.
Any other comments? My only comment would be you might want to play around with trend lines because it will smooth out.
Yeah, I'm educating myself in charts.
Yeah, we'll play around with it because as we get more and more data,
Yeah.
It's really the trend rather than individual numbers. I think are the things that are quite important. It's very easy to use. Okay, so
May I say something? I think the microphone needs to be on the other side because Kevin has a very soft voice. When you're going down.
am I allowed to help
They
with
should be
anything?
fine. They should be fine. They're due to pick up within.
I'll try and project also.
Project. So that was to receive. Thank you very much. Item 7, page 15, the Town Centre Partnership. Appendix 7.
I just have to apologise for, I didn't spot that the formatting came out badly when it was sent to the printer. I will try and ensure I spot that in future and change it. There's an issue where when we send certain files to the printer, it merges letters together in the format, which makes it more difficult to read. So sorry, I missed that.
Okay, so are there any questions? Because both you and I were there.
No, I wasn't there.
Okay, sorry. You normally are.
Yes, I am. I've got a couple of questions, and one was going to be the format. I thought I'd lost the plot after a page. I see on here someone has suggested changing the word chairman to be chair. I think Keith, you and I will agree on the one thing is that I am not an inanimate object. A chair is. A chair will never answer back. I think that's really inappropriate. It may be common practice these days, but I refuse to be called a chair.
Do you have an alternative?
Chairman, I don't care being called
Okay,
chairman.
fine. Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, we need to just look at those suggestions and in essence approve them. So I'm ambivalent to it. Chair is something you sit on or you hit somebody over the head with. You know, if it's a stunt one,
But it doesn't answer back, and that's the chairman's job really to speak.
So,
Madam Chair and Chairman or something, I don't know.
Madam Chairman. Yeah, so I sense the view here is that we should keep it as chairman. Is that unanimous?
Yeah.
And suggest when we're there to the chairman of the town centre partnership that if it's a male, it's Madam Chairman. I think that would work well, wouldn't it?
I don't mind being called chairman because it's not a.
You're old school, like me.
Yeah, absolutely.
For consistency, rather, that's the same through the statement for the rest of the councils.
I say they're all
So that-
called Chairman in
Yes.
respect of it.
Then the other one was on page 16, point 2, because point 1 is the same as the other one. Insert the word Woodley before town centre partnership in 3 places. And they identify 515361.
I think these changes were made before with the terms of reference that were then taken to full council and approved on the
Okay.
10th of May. So I think they may already be included. I
Okay.
don't know about the reference to chair, but I do know that the inclusion of Woodley was already added.
Okay, so if it's been done, I won't labour the point. So that is to receive. So the next is item 8, project schedule 22-23, page 19. Kevin again.
Thank you. So just to note, there's a list of projects there which are in progress. So those first 3 items that will be updated shortly because some of those are now coming to conclusion, which is good news. What that does mean as well, as we mentioned earlier on, the capital programme, which sits kind of aside from this because there's a separate allocation of funding to that, which the council has put in for this year. That will come to full council and there'll be a list of projects on there for the coming year. And there's a number of those. Some are still being investigated and some may come off that list at the bottom of page 20. So we're just looking at what that might mean and they haven't all been costed yet. And there might be some others going on as well. So we're doing some work on that at the moment. So that's something that will come to council for consideration.
So can I ask you, which ones of these that bottom set that we absolutely have to do? So for instance, I would have thought fire alarms detection sounders must be right at the top of the list. So if you could advise the committee of which ones are sort of we absolutely have to do and nice to have or whatever.
Yeah, when the capital programme itself is put together, we'll try and do that because it's important, I think, for members looking at that to consider which ones go on there. The reality is that with the funding available in the capital programme, all the projects we want to do might not be there. So some other projects might just come back to committee for consideration for funding anyway, sort of outside of that. Within that list, most of those are pretty important. There's a couple that can wait, but I think it's probably better that when I've put the actual list together, that we can put some priorities and costs against those, so it makes a bit more sense.
When we're putting the list in priority order, could health and safety be our most important priority?
Yeah, what we will have, and that I want to provide, which we've not done before, so rather than it just being a list, it will be broken down in terms of what those priorities are, so that members can understand a little bit the same way as we include information about environmental impacts and quality stuff. Just that kind of box at the end of each one to highlight those for
So sorry, Anne, you had a.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. One was regarding the refurbishment of the football wing. Is that football wing something that can be used by other people who play other sports?
Yes, it is. Yeah, the cricket used it quite a lot. We've got the American football guys, I think, use it as well now up there. So yeah.
Oh, really good. And the other thing was, why would the Oakwood Centre front patio door need replacing? Because I thought it was fairly new.
No, it's the big one here.
It's wrong place, sorry.
Yeah, it's the big one at the front of the cafe there, and it's been not great on the runner for quite some time. It's a very, very heavy door. They don't make them anymore. They don't make the fittings for it anymore, and it also it leaves a trip hazard when it's open because it has a lip at the bottom. So it is marked off so that people can see that, but in the summer it's not ideal when it's open, and because people do tend to come in and out that way, which makes perfect sense. So we're looking at options for something that would be flush with the floor, but also that people can actually open without needing assistance.
It screams to me of bifolds
Yeah.
for that shower down, because then it opened the whole thing. And then the next step for that would be to do something about the patio area itself. But anyway,
Can I ask if the gas boilers in the centre need to be replaced? And I would caution against heat source pumps yet. I don't think they're good enough.
No, we're looking at some options and getting some advice. The technology's moved on, it seems, in terms of boilers anyway, and where that's going with combination hydrogen and natural gas boilers. So we've got a bit of work to do there. We're just aware that they are coming towards the end of their life. They're the original boilers in here and pumps. So we're looking at it and getting some advice, but yeah, we need to make the right decisions.
It's a big building to heat with heat source pumps.
Yeah, that might well not be the answer.
Good, yeah.
Not necessarily cheap either.
No.
Yes, I just asking really if when the information comes about prioritising, that we get a lot of this information that you're giving us now, Kevin, so that we're not just looking at what's considered a priority either in terms of environment or safety, but also exactly what it is and why it's needed.
Yeah.
any other comments? I think you've is there any items on there that any of you sort of have a burning desire that has to be done? But you want to wait until you get more information? No, that's fine. And I was talking to Kevin earlier. One of the things I think we also need to add to this list, which is, I'll call it the wetlands here in Woodford Park. As you'll see on the next item, the SIL money. We've got a lot of SIL money unused at the moment. Personally, I would like to see that used as a bonus, something to spend on a project that we are unlikely to ever get around to. And in the wintertime, that area is almost impossible to use. So if we could potentially spend some of this money to get rid of the wetlands, if it's possible, that will bring on much more, the whole section of Woodford Park back into use. So if there's no...
Just a drainage thing, is it?
Yeah, that area of the park, that kind of corner is lower lying than the rest of it, so it sort of drains down toward the lake there. So it's okay in the summer, but yeah, once you get through to the start of the autumn season, it gets very boggy there indeed.
You can't walk on it.
No.
from where the bell school, right the way up to the hill. You literally cannot walk on any of that unless you've got flippers on. Okay, so I think we've spent some good time on that. We'll move on. That was to note. Next, to note, item 9, community grants. Note that expressions of thanks have been received from Chemo Gift Bags, Me Too Club, Woodley Bowling Club, and Woodley Festival of Music and Arts. Good. Now, item 10, catering partnership. This is for us to make a decision. It's basically suggesting that we disband it. I'm going to hand over to Kevin
Yes, thank you.
to give the justification.
Yeah, so just for some context, the catering partnership, the wording for it is slightly confused. It used to be called management panel. I think we changed it to make it sound more friendly, but it was set up at the time when we were looking for a new provider for catering services in the centre. There's a lot of work done by the members on that group at that time to go through what led up to the tendering process and to appoint the contractor, which was a really important bit of work. Since then, the partnership itself, when it's met, it's been quite difficult to arrange meetings. And what we've found through over time is that essentially it's now a contract monitoring function, and that we're doing that at the officer level, meeting with the contractor on a regular basis. And from an operational point of view, in the nicest possible way, there wasn't much value to those meetings happening. That said, when we come to renewal and looking at something else and reviewing that, it might well be that the S&R committee might want to appoint to a task and finish working group to do that piece of work. I think that it doesn't take away any of the committee's kind of oversight of anything. And what I would be doing is, now that we've come out of COVID, everything's functioning again properly, and we'll be reporting the catering income back to each S&R meeting, that there's still oversight there, but actually that there's not really much need for the partnership to be meeting just on that sort of monitoring level.
I was going to say, there was thought to be a bit of a need to sort of liaise as regards events, encouraging catering for events. That was thought to be a reason for having the sort of.
I mean, we do that. So our kind of brief and motivation in that is to obviously increase their opportunities to make money as much as possible, because of the rent arrangement, we get a cut of that as well. We want it to succeed. So yeah, we do try and encourage that wherever we can. It's been a really tough operating time for the company and for anybody in that industry. But the setup we've got still working very well. The food offering is incredibly consistent and still is very high quality and consistent. I think we've got a level which we're working at. If there were issues further down the road, then that might be something to.
No, that's a good question to follow up on that. When somebody books an event and the events officer sends an acknowledgement of the booking, do they also send maybe a flyer or something to say, if you want catering, then here are the contact?
Absolutely, yeah. But we send out the booking form itself, goes out with a catering page with it, solely for that for every.
I remember the pain, Kevin.
Yeah.
Sadly, and I agree with you. Things seem to have calmed down a lot. How long has this contract got to run?
It was renewed for a 5-year period. I think that was probably about a year. That would have been in the April, so just over a year ago. So
Okay, so
it's left.
And I'm happy that we change this, because it is painful when it comes up. You don't need to do it any more often than you have to. With the proviso that if there are any issues, you come back to the leader of the council and this committee decides how to deal with it.
Yeah. And I think you would pick that up as well, because I would include those things in the Oakland Centre report and in the catering. So,
And we do have, for the first time, catering income figures here. Yeah. Any further?
I completely agree, because having sat in those meetings, you know, it was useful, but it wasn't a necessary, you know, use of our time really,
Yeah.
because a lot of it was operational between you and Sean. Was it Sean?
yes, yeah.
Really, we didn't have a huge amount to add, to be honest with you, so, and Anushka with regards to any promotion and stuff, so, yeah, I totally agree.
So the recommendation is that the catering partnership is disbanded. All those in favour, please show. Unanimous. Unanimous. Right, another change to standing orders. Item 11, community infrastructure levy, page 21. So we're down at the bottom. So you'll see that no money due left. We've got 20,000 in April. That makes a total of 248,000. 26 we spent. This is the sum I was talking about earlier about we could potentially say the project for removing or trying to remove the wetlands could be funded out of this rather than our other reserves. So any questions on that?
Yes, thank you. It looks as if, looking at page 22, that still money's being spent on these things within our means. And I have been going on a bit about the improvement or the enhancement to the Bournemouth open space, which includes our one that we manage or jointly own with Early Town Council, which is Bournemouth Park. In order to extend the enhancement, it would be useful if work was done in the park to make all sorts of improvements. And I wonder if it's a possibility that there can be a bid for that SIL money to invest in maybe a phased program for Bournemouth.
I know that you've had some conversations, which I've been copied into as well, that the whole subject of Bournemouth Park and the potential enhancements is going to come to Leisure Services. So I think rather than preempt what Leisure Services might say, let's wait until it's gone there. They will make a pitch for it if that's what they agree, and we'll review it. Just for, I know you know about it because you're heavily involved, but for the benefit of Vin and Shardy, is the Bournemouth Park section actually is owned by Early Town Council. The section that Woodley Town Council is tucked around the corner and it's significantly smaller. And what they're talking about doing is enhancing some of the boundary by putting in walkways and additional shrubs and stuff like that. I would be not to prejudge the Leisure Services Committee, but since we don't own that part of the park, we maintain it and are paid by Early Town Council to do that. I would want to make sure that the proportionality of any investment between Early Town Council and Woodley Town Council is appropriate when it comes to that. I think we're very early on in the process. This is the first time that we're getting engaged in this project. Officers have been invited in the past, I believe, I was told, but one way or another, they haven't been able to make the meetings that they've had on site. I managed to go there because it was in the Herald, which I saw and I was curious. So we're getting involved there. Early Town Council has been involved for, I believe, for a long time. as is the Friends of Bulmesh Park, which Carol is a leading light in it. Carol.
Yes, it just if it is going, well, it is going to leisure services. I'm not sure that the agenda item will say there's a possibility of a bid, and I wondered if that's something that would be flagged up so people can have a bit of thinking about it beforehand, rather than get the item on the agenda and all of a sudden somebody says, well, do you want some money to, should we be bidding for some money? Or at least put something out there that starts the ball.
I think I don't have a problem with that. The thing is, I believe what the proposal will be was to part fund an investment to do that. Whether it comes from SIL or reserves will generally come, correct me if I'm wrong, to this committee to decide. The principle of doing it and spending the money is the one that needs to be put through at the Leisure Services Committee.
We talked about the wetlands area, and before we agree that that needs to be done, I'd like to see some costings and also some other wish list projects that could be done so that we can weigh them against the other. I mean, it could be that the wetlands needs to be done from general maintenance and that sort of budget. I don't know. But before we splurge a lot of money on one project, I'd like some compare and contrast views.
That's a fair comment. My expectation is that list of potential projects, when it's worked up, will have costs on it. And then this group will decide which projects we would recommend for council to do. And then subsequent to that, it's okay, this is going to cost this. Which pot of money does it come from?
I'm happy with that.
Some time ago, we used to see a list of possible things to build, probably sort of play areas and things like that. But there was one suggestion was a BMX track.
I think that might have been in the old projects list, which did have like a wish list on it. It had some items on it, which just kind of sat there and I think what I'm hoping to get from this is that it's a bit more targeted and members have got better information so that we're considering and moving on things that the members want to do rather than just leaving some of those things on there, which kept coming back sort of each time but weren't really being considered. I mean, that said, I think it's important that the members do see what those wish list items are, and there could be things that are perhaps not the things that we've been looking at as priorities as well. So there is scope for suggestions, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so it could be possible to in some way circulate the old wish list. No.
I could do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Vin?
Thank you. Going back to the Bulmesh Park, we spoke some time ago about converting to Bulmesh Green. Is that all part of the same project, or is Bulmesh Green separate?
Sorry, can I answer?
Yes, please.
The idea was to put in a proposal that the proposal is that we have town green status or village green status for the whole of the Bulmesh open space. And the necessary documents were sent to on high to something like a Secretary of State, I think it was. And to Woking Borough in the first instance. And I don't think, Kevin, on that we've had any more.
No.
I keep asking if there's any movement on that, but it's got lost with the legal beagle somewhere in Woking Borough, so that hasn't been progressed at the moment.
And then to further complicate things, there has been a change of administration now. There's a coalition that's running the Borough Council. So everything that was going through the system is potentially halted because there could be a different direction going on, and this is all linked into the local plan. So we'll see how that emerges. It may be exactly what is the previous administration was pushing forward. Doubt it, but it might be similar to that with tweaks, but they've only been in a month, something like a month in control. So I think it would be impossible for them to start saying, this is what we want to do, that it'll take them, in this particular instance, to do with planning, etc., it'll take them months to bed in before they can start moving forward. Okay, if there's no more comments, that was to note. Now we move on to item 12, which I think is the first time it's actually appeared. And for what it's worth, I don't think you'll find anything to do with Woodley in here.
No, there is one, it took a long time, but it was almost Pool. It has to be a historical document to get anything in, Woodley on here.
Oh, and Woodley Primary expansion.
Yeah.
All I was going to say. Yeah, yes, Highwood. Well, Highwood and Beechwood. It's on page 38. All I'm saying was going to just raise and put it out there on the table is generally these are all to do with the strategic development locations. That's where it came from originally. And I just suggest maybe it's inappropriate for it to be in the agenda, but just circulated. But I'll throw it open to the floor, see what you view.
I think it's driven by various things, because the school increased places is driven by school numbers. There are no choices, isn't it? It has to be done. Where it's done is where there's land. So Highwood was land to improve, and that applies to the school.
So do you want this to be continued here in the agenda to come to future S&R meetings, or would you prefer it just to be circulated?
Does it come out?
I think monthly, from memory. I know I get it. You will get it now because you're a councillor in the borough.
If it's monthly, it must be due shortly then. Yeah.
Or, you know, if you've got no view either way, we'll just leave in.
I didn't see much point in it when I looked through it, trying to see what was relevant. The only one I was interested in was the long distance car, which are talking about building a new bridge. And I thought, yeah, it's funny how they can build one, but not where we want one. But yes, it seemed to me that it's kind of for information only, and I think circulated for anybody who really wants to read it. But as an agenda item, I didn't see it was of much value.
And if we did that, then anybody who picks up something like you were saying that the long distance path can request for it to be an agenda item to pick up, because it may prompt other questions rather than just, okay, that's the data. Are we comfortable with that? I think the proposal is not in the agenda, it'll be circulated, but anybody who's got any particular interest will make requests for agenda items with Matthew. Okay. Yep. We just say, oh, sorry. Go.
Say something that isn't in this list. It mentions something about Woodley primary schools,
Yeah.
but it does not mention pressure on secondary places in Woodley. And
This is all about projects that are in hand or completed and funded. So the issue on the secondary places is an issue that hasn't been resolved yet. So you wouldn't see it in here because there's no plan that I assume that the officers over there are working on various plans. Okay.
No, Wangels has expanded its numbers. I think maybe one, I can't remember, to take some additional children.
And we all need to remember the most of these schools now are academies. Thank you. Old age getting in the way. Academies. And academies have total control over everything, including their criteria for selection. So they can decide to take the creme de la creme, any of them. It's an informal arrangement that they actually work with the borough council for the catchment areas. but that's an informal arrangement and they can break it at any time.
Currently, there are only 2 academies, aren't there? Angels and Beechwood.
Bullmarsh. But Bullmarsh isn't academy. Anyway,
Isn't-
okay. That's,
Yeah. No.
Addington. But that's the main issue, which is why I've always been against academies. All right. So we're moving on.
Tell the government, aren't you?
Did. In bottom drawer somewhere.
Didn't they?
It was way before Horace academies, unfortunately. Item 13, Town Council responsibilities and eventable. That came through the councillor, wasn't it? If I remember.
Councillor Heath recommended it at.
That asked the question, didn't it?
Yes.
I'm not sure whether they got an answer.
I think if I could just say a couple of words, I think what we gleaned from that, in the event of a war or a significant event like that, we would be taking our lead from central government in that sense, so that information would filter down. But one thing that it has presented opportunities is for us to re-engage with the emergency planning officer at Wokingham about our place in that, not specifically for in the event of war, but in the event of other natural disasters or emergencies on a more local level. And we haven't done that for a while. There was quite a push on it a few years ago, and it all kind of went a bit quiet. So we will be just engaging with them again to make sure we're in there.
Can I ask then that one of you two sends a copy of that, plus maybe the added text you just talked about, to all councillors, so they're familiar with it? Carol?
Yes, I think Kevin's kind of answered it, but to me that answer was, well, yeah, obviously that's what's going to happen. We wouldn't expect anything else. I think what I'm more concerned about is the gap between the emergency at the top and then Woking Borough and then to here. And I think if you've had that discussion with the emergency planning officer, that it would be really useful for us all to understand where that line of responsibility is and exactly what would happen. So the scenario is that war's declared, what gets put into place immediately, et cetera, et cetera. It all sounds very depressing, doesn't it? But I think if forewarned is forearmed, isn't it? So I'd like to see a bit more detail than the obvious, which is the answer in the agenda here.
Can I add to that? Because hopefully it's more likely that some other sort of disaster will take place. And I know from the emergency services that there's considerable amount of planning going on around an air crash and that type of thing. That it would be useful to have that link as well, so that we as councillors are aware of the planning that's going on. We don't need to know individually what it is, but that there is a plan, a safe.
Okay, I can report something back when I've discussion. What that kind of revolved around the last time we visited it, but it was some time ago. It was to do with information sharing and the Borough Council knowing what buildings are available, for example, and then how to get hold of people in that sort of scenario that might be able to house people or take care of people as a refuge centre or whatever. But those kinds of things, and making sure that they're up to date. At the moment, I would say they're probably not.
Any other questions, comments? And
Well, I'm just wondering about sort of utilities. Does the Borough Council know where key water pipelines and things are? You know, if there are any if there's any redundancy, does anyone know anything like that?
In terms of the areas they own, do you mean, or just generally? I mean, they would have access to utilities plans and things, but sort of highways would have lots of that information.
Right, no, well, yes, that is one of the things, sort of electricity and water. You know, if one line is destroyed, is there another one, that sort of thing? Would anyone know that?
can I make a suggestion? Because it's, this is all in the dark for all of us. And I would expect probably the emergency planning officer at Wokingham is still in the dark as well, because it'll come from the top down. But could we get the emergency planning officer to come and do a sort of mini presentation to full council?
Yep, explore that.
Or isn't necessarily, but that's normally, hopefully it's a slower process, but something like environmental or like you said, a plane crash or something is immediate. So that would come under emergency umbrella.
Yeah.
We got big train lines as well, either side of us.
Capture that?
Yes.
We okay to move on?
Yeah.
Item 14, just to note that unfortunately, the Climate Emergency Action Plan update couldn't happen, so it's now on the 7th of July. Item 15, any future agenda items for this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I've been sat here looking at the yellow notice, which I can't read from here, but it's a fire evacuation. I presume that we meet outside, but I've no idea. I don't think I've had a fire practice since I've been on the council. And I wondered if at the start of every meeting, not going to expect the chairman to be doing a flight attendant display.
Oh, no, go on.
But I think when we read out a bit about it being recorded and everything else, that it just for the members of the public as well, that we ought to say,
Yeah.
this is the process and this is where we would evacuate to.
And if somebody's holding an event here, they do it. I've been to many, many events where they actually say your fire exit is here, there. I think it's
Great idea.
a good trap.
Can I have a life jacket too, please?
Yeah, you pull the plug.
Okay, any other future agenda items? Item 16, any publicity on website, anything? No,
No,
otherwise,
sorry, Chair. I noticed thing about the beacon lighting. There was awful lot of people complaining that they didn't know about it. I know that doesn't come under SMR, but it's.
yes, and an awful lot of people defended what the town council did.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I saw loads of,
That
I mean, you know, but
some people were suggesting that the newsletter should have been sent out to every household,
oh, that's-
which is not practical. It was in the newspapers. It was on social media. I think I counted up 9 different times.
Yeah.
Going back to April. Now, fully accept there are some elderly people who aren't on the internet. Mind you, there's less and less of those people. You know, elderly people are getting more and more computer literate. But the thing is, those elderly people who don't have access, they have relatives who do have access, and a word of mouth. A lot of people who came was through word of mouth. Did you know about this, etc. I'm not sure what else.
No, I totally agree, because actually those groups that we're all members of, various Woodley groups, I saw it on there several times. So if you were already on that group, you would have already seen it. So, yeah.
Well, somebody said they were on one of those groups and hadn't seen it. But
Did it go in the Herald? That's the question.
no, I think it was decided after the Herald. But it was in Phil Crichton, who's the editor of Woking Today. He contributed as well, saying, "Well, I put it into the paper." Not sure what else could have been done. But actually, there was one good suggestion. But if we're doing anything in the park again, he's actually putting up posters in the park. That is something I think we ought to do next time. Because
I remember it for 50 years. Or maybe 25.
okay,
Yeah.
yes,
Well, I don't know whether this is the right point to mention it, but it's just that I was a bit confused about the meeting times. You can see the committee meetings and things that you can see on the town council website. I had the impression, because I think it says 21 to 22, but then when you scroll down, you can see the meeting times for 22 to 23, but I was a bit confused about.
I have, so that's an area of the website that we internally can't change, that link. So that schedule we get our website guide to change. So there's a button that links to it. So that PDF has 2 pages, which I update. So when we knew that we had the next dates, I put both on there so you could scroll down. I asked for that to be changed and it hasn't changed yet. So it should have basically, as soon as the end of the last municipal year ended,
Yes.
it would go to just these ones. It just hasn't been done yet, but it has been asked. I will chase him on that because I know sometimes those things get missed, but I will chase that.
Is there any particular reason why we can't do it locally?
It's technical skill. It's an area of the site that I don't think we've even got access to. I know there are odd little bits on the website.
We will investigate whether we can make it so.
Because
There's a few things like that with like our archive pages. So there are pages that are archived off where things are written in specific text and HTML and stuff that we don't have in-house technical ability to do. But we can definitely have a look at it.
Yeah, I just a bit concerned of it's hostage fortune. We're reliant on someone else to, particularly with the calendar, that's a very key piece of information, not just for councillors, but also for residents to know what's going on.
I mean, it is obviously because of the dates when we set things up, it inevitably is put up within normally several weeks of that change happening. This time it's on there, the dates are on there. It's just that last year's dates come first and then the second page is those dates. So it's not that that's not on there. It's just that we should now be removing last year's dates.
I think there were 2 links and one of them probably still says 2021 to 22 sort of thing. And then the other one link says scheduled meetings.
If you could find where that might be and let me know, that would be really helpful because then I can engage with them to check on that.
Okay.
What I do know is I changed the because it did say previously schedule of meetings in the year, but because that schedule of meetings at different points of the year will be both this municipal year and next municipal year, I took the date out. I asked them to remove the date so it just says schedule of meetings. But I can check if there's something on there that you think from, definitely just email me and I can investigate that for you.
Okay, thank you.
On the individual links for individual standing committees and full committees, where you have the agenda and minutes, is there any opportunity to put some dates there?
For the individual committees, yeah.
I'm assuming that's under our control.
Yeah, no, the pages that we have for the for each of the committees, we do we can add dates to that, not a problem. I can add another.
I'm just thinking if there's a difficulty in one way, with technology, there will be 452,000 different ways to do the same thing.
Yeah, so at the moment, it comes under a schedule of meetings button on the meetings and community.
Yeah.
It has a PDF that has, at the moment, both municipal years on it. I can either add an extra link here of future dates, or I can add it in the second page. So yeah, I can.
Can you guys?
Where we do that? Yeah.
An issue's been highlighted. The way we've done it traditionally maybe is not the way we should be going forward.
I'll sit to download and it's not done.
Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, I will close the meeting at 20:58. Thank you, everyone. And I hope to see many of you on Saturday at the carnival.
I'm afraid I am going to miss it.
Otherwise,
Oh,
I'll be
Keep happy to exist.
Yes, they get 4 wristbands. I don't know. That will be good.